Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our new week of English learning. This morning, what we're going to be focusing on for our grammar session for this week will be continuing our subject of apostrophes. Now, last week, you'll remember we looked at apostrophes for possession. This week, we're going to be thinking about using apostrophes for contractions. Okay, we'll talk about what the word contraction means in a moment. And Freddie the Mouse is going to be the animal help for this morning's lesson. First of all, I've put a sentence on the board, or Freddie's put a sentence on the board, and the question says at the top there, what is this piece of punctuation called? Okay, have a little think, press pause. When you're ready, press play. Okay, welcome back. Well, hopefully all of you have remembered that that particular piece of punctuation is called an apostrophe. The question is, what is the apostrophe doing in the word couldn't? What does it do? What is the point of it? Press pause while you're having a little think about it and having a look at the word, and then press play when you're ready to listen to me talk about it. Okay, so the apostrophe was used in the word couldn't to show when a word has been contracted. By contracted, we mean made smaller, shorten the word. We shorten two words and join them together to make one. Okay, and when we contract two words, normally we remove some letters. The word is contracted. You might also see the word omitted. It means to miss out. So letters have been removed or missed out, omitted, to shorten the word. So couldn't originally would have been could not. And you can see that the apostrophe has taken the place of the letter O. So the apostrophe goes or is used and put in place of where those letters have been removed, and then the two words are joined together. So could not becomes couldn't, and the apostrophe replaces the O. Okay, let's have a little look at contracting some words. Now we've got an example here. She is. If we wanted to contract the two words together, we would remove the letter I, and that's why it's highlighted in red, and the word then becomes she's. So instead of she is going to the fair, it would become she's going to the fair. The apostrophe would replace the I, and we would join both words together. The next word, two words there, we have we are. Okay, we are. Now, if we are going to put those two together, then the word becomes we're. Okay, we're. So we will stay, and R and E will stay on the end, but we will take out the A. We will omit the A and place an apostrophe. So if we wanted to have a look at it here, then we are along here. We're. Okay, so we've joined the two words together and removed the A. The last one, what is the time? What's the time? Okay, now it's time for you to have a go. I've put up a few words that need contracting here. So let us, what does that become? Let us go to the zoo. Do not run across the playground. Should not, I should not have to tell you twice. That is the way to do your work. So what are you going to change these two if you were going to, or these four of them, sorry, if you're going to contract them? Have a little think, and then I'll show you the answers in 3 or 4 minutes time. So press pause and then press play when you are ready. Okay, let's check the answers here. So let us becomes let's. If you see, we've contracted the two words together and put the apostrophe in place of the U. So it becomes let's go to the zoo. Do not becomes don't. So when we contract the two words together and we remove the letter O from there, and then we put the apostrophe in. And should not becomes shouldn't. Okay, shouldn't when we contract the two words, and again we remove the letter O. And that is, the final one becomes that's. That's the correct answer. So we join the two words together and we remove the letter I. If you look, there is a pattern here that the apostrophe always goes before the last letter of the contracted word. Okay. 4 more for you to have a go at. Couple of minutes. Press pause while you're having a go. Press play when you're ready to see the answers. Okay, here we go. So I am becomes I'm. Again, if you look, we've joined the two words together, but we've removed the A there. So the two words are contracted. You will become you'll. Now this is a bit different this time. Instead of removing one letter, we've actually taken two letters out, the W and the I, to make it you'll. Okay, you'll have to do your homework. It is becomes it's. Okay, and finally cannot will become can't. And each with these last two ones, if you look, the I has been omitted and we've had the O omitted here. So I'm, you'll, it's, and can't. Okay, your first independent task this morning, I'd like you to have a go at these 8 words. See if you can contract them using an apostrophe correctly. Remember, you'll have to join the words together, but you'll have to remove some of the letters. You'll have to omit some of the letters. Write them in your books, and you've got 10 minutes to do this. Okay, press pause while you're working, press play when you are ready to see the answers. Press pause now. Okay, here are your answers to those questions. Okay, so we should have I'll, I've, can't, she'll, don't, should've, that's a tricky one. Okay, I'd, and wasn't. Hopefully you were okay with all of those. Quick bit of practice, have a look at the screen. I'm not going to ask you to write these out, but could you find which words up here, these are the expanded words, which would be their contracted form? You see the first one's been done, I am becomes I'm. Let's see if you can match them up, and then we'll quickly look through the answers in a moment. Press pause now. Okay, welcome back. Here are your answers. So I am, we knew, was I'm. Let us becomes let's. Is not, isn't. Do not is don't. He is, he's. And was not is wasn't. Hopefully you're okay with all of those. What we're trying to do is just give you practice of recognizing what the contracted form of the words are. Now it's easy, or you've been learning so far about how to take two words and contract them, join them together. However, it's good practice to actually reverse that. Okay, to actually go the other way, so that if this time I'm going to give you the contractions, and what I want you to have a go at doing is finding what the what the original words would have been. So what would I've have been originally? What would can't have been originally? Okay, so have a little look, have a little think about it, 2 or 3 minutes, press pause while you're working, press play when you're ready to come back to me, press pause now. Okay, time to check your answers. So I've could be I have, can't would have been cannot, shan't, that's an unusual one, we don't use that very often, would be shall not, she'll will be she will even, there would be they are or they were. As you can see, that could be either, because we've omitted 2 letters. There are it could have been both of these. They've would be they have. We've would be we have. Okay, omitting the H and the A. And finally, we'll would have been we will or we shall. I think it's probably more likely that you would use it with we will as the context. Okay, that brings us to independent task 2. I'd like you to write out these words, and then also next to them write what they're contracted, or what I want you to do is expand them, so you get the original words. These are the contractions. I want you to expand them, just as you've just practiced just now. And if you get finished, okay, your extension is, could you find more than one for I'd? Could you find more than one for I'd? Okay, have a go at this. I'll give you probably 10 minutes at this, please. So press pause when you're working and press play when you're ready to come back. Okay, well done. I hope you did okay with those. We'll just quickly go through the answers. So I'll will be I will. Couldn't would be could not. Shouldn't would have been should not. We're would have been we are. He'll would have been he will. Didn't would have been did not. I'd would have been I had. Or they'll would have been they will. Okay, hopefully you're okay with those. I'd is an interesting one because you could have more than one. I've got there I had. You could have been, you could have I would like to go to the fair. I'd like to go to the fair. So there is more than one. You could have come up with quite a few for those. Okay, let's have a look at the following sentence here. And Freddie the Mouse is saying, let's rewrite the following sentence using contractions. So there is a new cinema opening and it is awesome. What if you were going to use, if you were going to contract the underlined words, what would it become? Rewrite the sentence showing me the contraction. Press pause while you're doing it. Press play when you're ready for me to reveal the answer. Okay, hopefully you managed that nice and easily. And there you go with the contracted. And you can see that there is and it is are the two words, the two pairs of words that could be contracted. And if we were going to rewrite the sentence, it would be there's a new cinema opening and it's awesome. Okay, hopefully that's the sentence that you've got. Finally, for the independent tasks this morning, what I want you to do is to do what you did just now when we practiced. What I want you to do is rewrite the following sentences so that they contain contractions. So can you find which words would need to be contracted and what they would end up as, what the sentence would actually end up being? So what I want you to do is to rewrite the sentence using the contractions. Okay, press pause while you're doing this. I think no more than 10 minutes really, and then press play when you're ready to come back to me. Okay, hopefully you managed to get that done. And here are the answers. So I'd like to go to it, but I can't. If it's not raining, we'll walk. Thomas won't walk though because he's lazy. Who's knocking on the door? We'll be late if you don't hurry up. And finally, I've no choice, I'll have to go. So hopefully you're starting to identify words that could be contracted in sentences. Finally, for this morning's lesson, we're going to read chapter 15 of Varjak Paul so that we're ready for tomorrow morning's lesson. Chapter 15, if you're going to follow in your Varjak Paul ebook, which is on the yearbook page or year group page on the website and on Microsoft Teams, I'd like you to turn to page 111 of the ebook and follow the reading with me. Okay, chapter 15. A tongue the texture of gravel licked Varjak's face, calling him up from the dream. It scraped a tender spot on his cheek. Blinding colours burst out in his head. He opened his eyes a crack. A black and white blur swam into view. Hold still, commanded a gravelly voice. I know it hurts, but it has to be done. Varjak opened his eyes and thought of Mesopotamia, of Jalal, of that delicious cinnamon food that he hadn't eaten. Anything, even hunger, was better than this pain. There, she said at last, you'll never win a cat show, but you'll live. You'd better live. Varjak opened his eyes again. Holly stood above him, Tam behind her. They were in a narrow, cobbled alleyway, a quiet path along the backs of city buildings. Iron fire escapes led up to sooty windows far above. Drain pipes snaked down through grills in the ground to the sewers below. Varjak thought he could see something glimmering, moving about beneath the streets, but it was night in the valley, and he couldn't be sure. In the distance, he could hear those fearsome metal monsters roaring along the roads. He could taste their poisoned smoke in the air. He could hear, too, the hisses and growls of street cats as they went about their business. But in this alley, the three of them were alone. There was no sign of the Ginger Tom who had nearly killed him. He stretched out. Cold, wet cobblestones dug into his ribs. His body was a pulp of pain. Yet, strangely, he didn't feel too bad inside. He was glad he was still alive, glad that this cat with the gravelly voice had rescued him. "You all right, Varjak?" said Holly. "You've been out for ages." "I thought you didn't want friends," he said. "We're not friends," she snapped. "Tam just made me feel bad about leaving you." "Me?" laughed Tam, "as if I could make her do anything." "Anyway, Ginger's gang went too far," said Holly. Varjak stood up unsteadily. "You stopped them, didn't you? I think you saved my life." All right, all right." Holly sounded embarrassed. She wouldn't look him in the eye. With one leap, she pounced onto a brick ledge high on the wall and started to stalk away, spiky as ever. Varjak wasn't about to lose her again. Without a second thought, he went after her. One moment he was down on the cobbles, the next he was on the ledge. His body seemed to know what to do. He only had to follow Holly. Tam came behind him. He padded between them to the edge of the wall, where Holly stopped to look up at the sky. Varjak followed her gaze. A white wedge of moon glimmered there. It had grown since he last saw it. It was changing, becoming bigger and brighter. Varjak looked down from the sky. "Where are we exactly?" "We're in the centre of the city," said Holly. "No one else knows about these alleys. You're safe here." "Safe from what?" "From the gangs, stupid. On this side of the park, only the centre is neutral ground. Ginger's gang runs the east. Sally Bones is boss of the west. Whatever you do, don't try to fight her like you did with Ginger. I don't think anyone could help you if you did that. Ginger's rough, but deep down he's still one of us. Sally Bones? She's something else." "Shh!" hissed Tam. "She'll hear you." "Don't be stupid," said Holly. "She's everywhere," whispered Tam. "No one's everywhere. It doesn't make sense." "Then how else do you explain it?" said Tam. "You said it yourself. She's not one of us. She's something else." Varjak wondered what she meant. Not one of us. That was what his own family used to tell him. "What's so bad about that?" he said. Tam's eyes widened as she spoke. "She's all white." Holly snorted. "Big deal. You're all brown. So what?" "She can do things that no cat can," said Tam darkly. "What sort of things?" said Varjak. Tam shuddered. "It's dangerous to even think about it." Holly rolled her eyes. Varjak smiled. Tam was always so dramatic. "I won't tell anyone," he promised. "I can keep a secret." "Well," Tam glanced around nervously. "All right, one thing. She can become invisible. She'll just appear out of thin air, and you don't see her coming till it's too late. That's why no one can beat her in a fight." "That's just tales," said Holly, "and I don't believe them. But she's the toughest cat in the city, no question. Even Ginger fears Sally Bones." "Please," begged Sam, "don't say her name." "Her gang's cornering all the food too," continued Holly, "which is why we need to keep these places secret." She jumped down from the wall. Varjak and Tam followed her. They shimmied under a low iron railing into another alley. It would have kept him out if he hadn't seen Holly sneak through first. "They're moving in on Ginger's turf now. That's why he was so rough when you went for his bins," she said. "Which reminds me," said Tam, "what are we eating? I'm hungry." "Me too," said Varjak. Holly shrugged. "There's nothing here. I've checked already. We could search the park, or we could go hunting." Hunting means splitting up and going it alone, said Tam. I want to do something altogether. She looked down. Besides, hunting's difficult, she muttered. It's not so hard, said Varjak. You, said Holly, squaring up to him. You know how to hunt? He wasn't sure. He felt like he did, but he'd only ever hunted in a dream. I think so. Holly laughed. You either can or you can't, and I've never met a pet who could. She stared at Tam. Plenty of street cats can't. Just because you know a lot, said Tam, doesn't mean you're great. I'd rather someone loved me than be some boring know-it-all. But I do love you, Tam, grinned Holly. Her mustard eyes sparkled with mischief. You do? Said Tam suspiciously. Of course I do. Holly sounded very sincere. Tam relaxed and smiled. Everyone does, continued Holly. Tam's smile grew wider. And you know who loves you most of all? Who? Said Tam. Who? Holly? Tell me who? Sally Bones! Shouted Holly. Tam leaped back, startled. Holly laughed at the shocked expression on her face. Varjak chuckled. Behind her mustard eyes, Holly had a sense of humour, but poor Tam hadn't seen it coming, and her shaggy brown coat was standing on end. That's not very funny, said Tam, as her fur slowly settled. Come on, smiled Holly. Let's see what we can find in the park. That's the end of chapter 15. I'll see you tomorrow, ready for the morning's lesson. Goodbye.